Design Director, Principal at Gensler, architect Hasan brings design leadership to a wide range of architectural and research-driven projects. He believes that design should combine aesthetics and elegance driven from performance and human emotional connection, inspiring life, work, and innovation. As a principal and a design director, Hasan promotes a culture of design, exploration, and the open exchange of new ideas, and is responsible for advancing each project's design approach. To his role as a firm-wide leader of Gensler's commercial office building practice, Hasan brings 30 years of experience in concept design and project development. Hasan has assembled a portfolio that includes the design and planning of large-scale high-rise towers, office buildings, mixed-use developments, and cultural projects. A Green Star-accredited professional, GBCA NSW, Australia, Hasan studied sustainability design at RMIT University in Melbourne, Australia. B.Arch, NEDU and M.Arch from METU. Hasan Saab, please come on stage for your presentation.
Cheers. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Look, it's such an honor to be here in front of some of my old mentors here and some of the biggest names in the industry of architecture in Pakistan. So absolutely fantastic homecoming for me, and really a big honor. And I hope to share some of the experiences. But of course, what I will try to do is to share how you put the ideas together. And before we saw beautiful presentations by Sir and by Ali Naqvi. And so some of the very nimble work that we saw was just amazing. And so what I'm going to talk about that how you humanize the monsters. So it means that when you're practicing large scale architecture, it's a slightly different ball game. And how do you bring nature and humanize them? That's the biggest challenge we face, and that's what I want to share. Okay, so a little bit about Gensler. So everyone knows that it's one of the biggest architectural practice. And I spoke to a lot of people around here who said, oh, you know, we're a small firm. But think about it. This practice started 60 years back with just one office, 3 people, but one big idea. And I think one big idea makes all the difference. So we design everything from 60-meter products to 60-centimeter products to 600-meter products. So today I'm going to talk about the tall buildings. And I know the tall buildings is not a work of one person. It's a work of many expertise. Hello. So it's a work of many people within the project teams who make enormous contributions. So I'm not here to lay claim on the work that I'm going to show you here, but what I'm going to tell you is that I want to a lot of people who contribute to make it happen. And so in our firm, we've got about 200 people who have expertise in tall buildings. And we have centers of excellence for designing tall buildings. And of course, Shanghai, London, Chicago, San Francisco, LA, and Houston. So I'm part of that tall building expertise within the organization. So a little bit talk about the history of the tall buildings. So of course, in the 19th century, we used to think, oh, can we design tall buildings? And then in the 20th century, we felt, oh, okay, we could design. And so now, the question is that why do we need to design tall buildings? Because people say, oh, because we can. So it brings prestige. And so the question is that, are the tall buildings really trending? So there are 2 reasons for the tall buildings. But of course, that's not just a good enough reason to say, oh, because it's better, because we want that. But it's about the lifestyle revolution, and it's about the real estate values getting more premium. So first I'm going to talk about the economic drivers. Of course, the prestige is very important, There's a market demand, but of course, in some big mega cities, where the land is premium, so there is a market demand for tall buildings. And of course, the urbanization. A lot of people are migrating to cities from the rural areas, so that's another important aspect. But at the end of the day, it's about creating destinations. It's just a little behind. Okay. Oh, sorry, I missed one. Yes. So the other important aspect of the lifestyle revolution is that there are mega cities. There's a young workforce. They want to work differently. The consumerism is on the rise. There's a search for authentic experiences. And how do we create hybrid mixed-use communities to engage people within the tall? So there are four important things I want to talk about today, and one is about the creativity, about the expertise, and one is about the research, and one is about the client focus. Excuse me, this is not working very well. Can I use the other mic? Is it okay? Okay. So as a fundamental aspect of our industry, the creativity across multiple areas is very, very important. So as designers, we want to design buildings which are aesthetically pleasing. So of course, and very unique and meaningful, providing unique user experience. The other important thing is the expertise. Tall building expertise, and the people who have practiced this art for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and we are still learning. So you need people to know what it needs to take, what it takes to do a tall building. The other important thing is the research. We as a firm spend 18% of our revenue on the research. So it means that we have our own statistics, we have our own know-how and the knowledge and how we do things. And the other thing is that, like, can we work together in a meaningful way to contribute towards the whole design process? And the clients is very important. I know a lot of people here are only focused on the design aspect. They say, oh, we are here to talk about the design. But when you're doing mega projects, the client is very critical. The investment is. So as designers, we need to make sure that we understand the purpose of the project, because it's a huge investment. If the investment fails, district fails, the city fails, and everyone is a loser. So from that perspective, the purpose is very critical. Some foundational elements. What are the basic criteria we need to consider when we are designing the tall buildings, and what are the new trends? The important thing is that we need to see the tall building as a vertical piece. So the building is not just about the walls and the ceilings and the tiles. It's more about creating experiences that connects the communities within the building in a vertical plane. So that's very critical. The other important thing is the programming. How do we bring different mix of the programming? So you can think about in communication, think about bringing in work, you can think about bringing art, exploration. A lot of mix is important for the success of the project and to engage people in a meaningful way within the tall building. The other thing is about creating destination. I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but sometimes the tall buildings do create what we call what the Burj Khalifa does is that maybe it's not a very successful financial project in itself, but what it does, it spurs the growth around the project, and it picks up the whole environment. And it's also very important to create new districts, new towns, and how the tall buildings helps in doing that. The other thing is that how we can connect to the extended community. So when we are designing buildings, whether it's short, we need to think about that, how we can think about connectivity beyond the plots, within the communities. So there's one rule which we say that enhancing the appeal of the observation deck. And so the general rule of thumb is that the 10% pays for the 9%. In reality, the 10% doesn't pay for the 90%, but what it does, it creates an appeal and attraction factor that brings the investment into the project. So think about having the right entertaining experience when you're at the top. And leveraging the TMD. TMD is a tune mass damper who would practice the tall buildings, that you know that wind is a very critical aspect to understand when you're designing tall buildings. So the tune mass damper is the counterbalance at the top of the tower to keep the tower upright and honest. And this is what I'm talking about when you're designing buildings more than 500 meters tall. So the tune mass damper may not apply to buildings up to 300 meters. So it's a very, very important aspect, that how we can use that as part of the art and experience. The other thing is that unsealing the tower. How can we bring nature, like at the start of the conversation, I talked about that how we humanize these monsters. How do we make them breathe? How can we bring nature into those spaces, and how we can unseal the tower? Sorry, it's a little stuck. Okay. Another statistics I want to share with you as part of our international research, that there's a 10% of employees' absences can be attributed to the architecture with no connection to the nature. So when we are designing buildings, please ensure that there is certain aspect of nature is connected with your building spaces, and that is very, very critical. The other thing is that when you're designing tall buildings, to think about the enhancements of evacuation systems. And I think it has evolved and changed over the period of time. When we were practicing tall buildings, something like 20 years back, every 15 floors used to have a refuge floor from where you can evacuate. Now it's maximum 50 meters. So that is very, very critical, how we evacuate people when they're in the skies. You can evacuate them through multiple ways, both horizontal and vertical. I'm not going to go too much into that. And cutting the rope. So the new technologies in terms of the vertical transportation system is making us go taller and taller. So now with the wireless or technology, we can go even up to 2 kilometers. And you would see some crazy projects happening in the Middle East where they're going 2 kilometers tall. So let me tell you, it's possible. And another statistics I want to share with you is 10 to 20% increase in rentable area if it's designed with the ropeless elevators. So less waiting time, you get the top tenants, you want the best tenants to make the project successful. So you, as a designer, you need to understand it. You need to understand that your project will not be sitting empty in the middle of the city. Your contribution has to go beyond in terms of making projects successful, both in terms of the design as well as fiscally as well. And I was having this conversation today with Syed, and maybe there's something to understand a bit better. And of course, the elevators can move sideways as well. And so I'm very briefly going to talk about, it's like juxtaposition of the two towers. So we'll have the Shanghai Tower, which is already built, and I'll show you another tower which is under construction. And then we'll show some very small scale projects. So compare. So the most important thing for us as designers to understand the thinking process. How do we think about an idea? Whether the project is big, project is small, but we need to know that how do we think. And this is, I just wanted to show you the image of 1990 of the Lujaze, which was just a farmland. And then you can see 2008, and then you can see 2016. This has all happened in the 21st. It's just the phenomenal amount of work that has gone in there. The other thing is about the vertical urbanism, how we bring nature into the spaces. So not everything we design is because of the ego of the designer. It's not that we wanted the tower to be spiraling around. No, there's a lot of science which dictates how the form and the function works. So we did this whole thing tested in a lab, and we studied the different angles of the twist. And 120-degree twist was the most optimum and the best twist that would reduce the wind impact on the tower. So that would mean when you reduce wind impact on the tower, you're going to reduce the structural costs associated with the tower. So when you're going to reduce the structural cost, you're going to save a lot of money in the building of the tower. So we saved about $58 million just because we did the right amount of testing that was needed to get the right design to be able to create a meaningful architecture that was scientifically involved, not at the whim of the designer that you wanted to see a curved building. So there needs to be a reason for everything that we do as designers. It's not that I want to see something which is just curving around. We need to think in a more meaningful way, more scientific way, that how everything needs to have a existence. The other thing very briefly about is that how the tall buildings has the structure. So of course you have a concrete core which acts as the major structure. Then you have outriggers, which in this case were sticking out and they were supporting huge and the mechanical floors. And then you have columns, which are huge monster column which goes all the way up. And then the whole outrigger is braced back to the core. And the building programming. So you've got amenities connected to the city infrastructure, underground railway, metro, and so on and so forth. You've got offices, you've got hotels, you've got apartments, you've got boutique hotels, you've got observation, you've got art. So it's a true vertical city. And retail podium offers close interaction with the nature. And there are 21 sky gardens. So, so when we talk about, that's where it comes. Shanghainese people love outdoor. They were small, always traditionally small gardens where they would put some plants and things. They have their pets here. So how bring Shanghai into this tower? Of course, the tower is being built in the 21st century. But the building needs to be authentic. They need to relate to the culture of the place. So we looked at it and we said, okay, so how I'm going to bring the outdoor garden spaces within the building. So we created this notion of the vertical sky gardens. Every zone has its own garden space. So it means there are 21 A-3. Can never be more sustainable super tall building than this building that you're seeing on the screen here. And this is not an exaggeration. So what happens is we talk about the sustainability. So you're on the 500-meter level. if you have to grab a coffee and you have to go all the way down to 500 meters, think about how much energy you use in taking the lifts and going down. So if every zone has an amenity space, then all you need to do is you just need to go down 5 floors and you can grab your coffee, you can grab your sandwiches, it's the sustainable approach to designing tall buildings, as well as you're creating spaces which the people can use this as a backyard or as your own garden space within the building. And of course, overall connectivity to the city infrastructure. So the city of the Shanghai is as much underground as it is above the ground. So you need to make sure that it's accessible for the public. Everyone can come through the city infrastructure. And earlier I talked about the TMD, which is the tuned mass damper. It is a counterweight against the strong winds that make the building move at the top. So what we want to make sure that it's 100 inches hanging off the cables, and to be able to create that sculpture, which is called the Shanghai Eye. The eye is not the eye, it's the eye of the mind. So you create meaningful exhibition and entertainment spaces as part of the experience. And of course, it wasn't a very clear day, but of course you have some amazing spaces to go and see. And of course, the curtain walls all done in parametrics. And the challenge, how do you build it? So in this case, we built everything in every zone, from the top of the zone to the bottom of the zone. Different approach. And transparent skin. So there is an atrium with the mechanically ventilated. So you don't need to air condition this space. This is your backyard space. This is your garden within the building. 21 gardens. And how do you adapt the strategies that you can conserve the water? You can use the rainwater to be used within the building to water the green on the podium. And you generate energy by the use of wind turbines, which are placed 500 meters above the ground, and they help in generating power which lights up the building. And of course, this is the image of the wind turbines that you can see closely. The other important thing I want to talk about is that when you're going to see the image of the Shanghai Tower, you see a little bit of notch all the way up. This notch, the reason why we have this notch is because the notch fuses the wind at a higher level. And when you confuse the wind, instead of wind having impact on the structure, it kind of moves away. And that way, you reduce the wind impact as well, besides the 120-degree twist. And I think the purpose of sharing all this is because when you're designing buildings, think about there has to be a purpose for everything that you do. There has to be a reason. It has to be scientifically informed, or it has to be intellectually informed. So there has to be a meaning and purpose to the whole process, not the whim of an ego of any one person. And of course, it's a game changer. Project I quickly show is another tower, and this was the tower competition we won in 12. And all the major projects that we do is never a direct commission. You're competing against the best in the world, and if you're good enough, you're going to win it. If you're not good enough, somebody else is going to win it. So we won this big competition, which was even taller than Shanghai Tower, was 29 meters. And what I want to make, look at what I'm trying to say here. I'm saying, looking at things again, make it count. So when you have a client who changes his mind, comes back to you and say, oh, I don't want this, don't get disheartened. important. Make it count. Maybe this is an opportunity for you to do something more meaningful. Maybe this is giving you extra time to think of it in a different way. And that is exactly what we did for this project. So we call it vertical strategy. And like as I said, the building needs to be authentic. A tower in Karachi should be different than the tower in Chicago, should be different than a tower in Tokyo or Shanghai, because the climate is different, the culture is different, the technology is different, and the way people do things is absolutely different. So authenticity means that it has to relate back to the place. And this is an example of a Suzhou center. And what we did is that if you study Suzhou, it's one of the oldest cities in China, you will realize that, look, it is famous for its garden. And so what we wanted to think as a juxtaposition to what Shanghai Tower I showed you was about bringing the Shanghainese green spaces as an idea for the tower. And this was about bringing Suzhou Garden into the vertical plane. The other in this tower is that Shanghai Tower has atriums on the outside because it's a more commercial office hotel project, while this is a more residential project. So how can we create courtyards and bring Suzhou Gardens into the space? Okay, so what we did is that we designed this whole book in a way that the core is a hollowed core. So we created a series of sky courtyards which will act as the sky lobby for the project. So every time, every 50 meters, you're going to come into the space, you will own Suzhou Garden. You will have this as an amenity place. And the reason why it's on the inside, the courtyard, the culturally, gives a sense of the privacy. And being a residential project, you want to be close to the of the tower so you can have maximize the views to the outside. So different strategy. And those different courtyards are different themed. They look at and express and invokes a different sense of look and feel. And how do you bring texture into the design of the facade? And so it's all about it. When we design buildings, authenticity does not mean we have to copy the past. But what we need to take inspiration and make sure it has a certain relationship to the place where it's being designed. And of course, this is just the process that how we came about to where we were. And sorry. So this is about a vertical ecology. This is about the courtyards in the sky. This is going to be the tallest residential project in the world. And this is something I also wanted to share here, is that, yes, the courtyards. We call it a smart courtyards. So think about, somebody might argue that, oh, you know, I have these courtyards and it's a hollowed core. Some of the courtyards may have more indigenous look and feel. Some of the courtyards may be more trendy. And what we brought in natural light into the courtyards through the fiber optic cables. So you can photovoltaic panels on the roof of the tower, and through the fiber optic cables, you bring natural light into the spaces. So it means that all the power generation that is happening, the lights that you see, are all natural light. And this is something which is so critical for us to think about. It's an important aspect and experiential spaces at the top. Just a minute. And now we can closer to our scale of the practices here. This is another example I want to show in terms of we wanted to talk about the trends. We also wanted to talk about that how we can bring in more sustainability and nature. Like at the start of the conversation, I said humanizing the monsters. And when you are a practitioner of the big project, you need to think about ideas that will have far-reaching impact beyond just the few people that it's going to serve. So this is about creating carbon neutral farming on a city infrastructure project, which is a substation. So nobody can imagine that there's a substation underneath that. So when you show this picture, this has been a phenomenal success. And of course, we work very closely with one of the top ecological and sustainable consultants to have the statistics, to have the right technology and the means to be able to achieve that. And this allows people within the central open garden to access the top of the project and be more and it acts as an extension to the park. And plus, there are functions you can grow your produce, and you can relax and enjoy and indulge in a lot of things, and it becomes lungs of the city, and we call it an eco oasis. And again, go back to the authenticity. Think about an idea that, okay, we want to make the new public space introduce the urban farming. So that's the purpose. Okay, we set it out. And then we are saying is that how can the building be transformed into a multi-use infrastructure that incorporates the machine part as well as the public space. So we look at some of the old traditions that there is a very strong pattern, and then how we can take that pattern and replicate it in a way that it becomes green oasis. And so very quickly, I just want to show you that how it's important to think about an idea and think about sustainability. So a choice of materiality or choice of technology needs to ensure that we are moving towards a carbon neutral future, not just in terms of the words, but we really need to take a deep dive and be knowledgeable into that aspect of the practice. A lot of us talk about it, but we don't know anything about it. To do that for the sake of our future generation. And of course, how can we convert the energy into the technology, which is the substation, as a city engine of experience, and provide a cover with nature and create an important city landmark for the people of the park. And of course, this is the whole process. So I have a few more things to show, so I'm not going to. If you have anything you want to ask, I'll be very happy to reply back. So multiple places you enter this building. So you can see, you can take the stairs up, go to the roof, and come down from the other side. And it's an amazing project in terms of how we managed to separate the machine part from the user experience, and how we also incorporated some spaces for dormitories, which we're going to look towards the riverfront side. And the thing that I'm showing you is under construction and real. So of course, some more imagery and some science behind it in terms of the programming that we are going to have in this project. And the science of how the hot air the form is designed in such a way that the whole cool air circulates inside and the hot air goes up, and it's part of the whole system that how we use the hot air to be able to use it in a more productive way for the users for the user experience, and how this whole facade system works to support that sustainability aspect, and we use materiality. Another quick, I want to show you this project, which is again very special, and it's an exhibition center. And so again, coming back to idea. We wanted to design an experiential center in a place called Sanya, which is an island in the south of China, which is like a Southeast Asia. And we went there, we looked at some of the traditional architecture. We said, oh, you know, there are a lot of traditional huts around this area. And buildings inspired by elements of that area. And so that was one purpose. The other aspect, we can create a story around what we wanted to do as a function. So we said, okay, so we're going to have a pre-show, we're going to have a post-show as part of the experiential journey for the project. So this is the pre-show. So what you see is the whole building is lifted above. So as you're approaching the building, you will see the central courtyard from far away. That's the show. You want to get the glimpse of what is coming. And then you reach the building. And so this is the view that you see, that as you're coming into the building, this is whole lifted up, and you see the courtyards at the back. And the whole facade, we're using the terracotta, and we kind of created a very special system through which there is a glass behind the terracotta. So if you want to open the glass sliding doors, this whole facade becomes the permeable structure. The other thing that inspired from the roof of the hut, so you can see there's a roof structure, and that is also a place for cross ventilation within the spaces. So I will show you the sections, and then you'll be able to see that. And so we want to create an eco habitat. And this is the materiality. So it brings in light, it brings in shade, it provides a very authentic user experience, because the south of China is very, very hot. So you need to make sure that it doesn't get too hot in the summers, because all year round is very tropical climate. And this is an idea that how this whole roof can open up and how this whole system of natural ventilation happens. And we have the permeable facade that allows for a flexibility that these spaces need not to be air conditioned at all. And this is the post-show. Oh. Sorry. Sliding. One more. Somehow it's not working in the back. It's not working. One more back. One more back. Okay, I think it's okay. I think just wanted to quickly share. So my message to everyone, especially the younger generation of designers coming up, is think about the process. Don't think about the product, but in terms of the process, think about what you need to do, or think about what has to be the greater purpose of the project. Think about an idea that may relate to something that should have roots to the natural habitat or the local culture of the place, to be more authentic and meaningful. So this is just the process that you understand and practice. Another very quick project I wanted to show you was another center. And so again, that how the nature can become architecture that's what I wanted to share with you here. So there's absolutely, we did not touch the ground. We wanted to make sure that the roof of the building slopes down and become the terraces in itself. So some inspiration, some aspects of the craftsmanship, some aspects of the historical culture, some aspects of the nature that inspired how this whole dynamic experience of destination has forms which connect to the nature, so you can be on the ground and you can walk all the way up to the top tower, on the building, I mean, and also experience the inside spaces as well, preservation of the nature and ecology, and okay, I think just could quickly show you some glimpses of how the inside and the outside spaces work, and the use of the concrete tiles, which have engraving and the pattern which relates to the local culture and the place. This showcases you the whole process and how the internal spaces flow and move, and how you have to think about in terms of the topography, the levels, and how you can enter into the space from a lot of much. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to close it off and hopefully leave time for some conversation. If you have any answers, please by all means come and have a conversation. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Architect Hasan, for sharing your creative design journey that has traveled across the globe and brought you back to your starting point, completing a full circle. I would now like to call all the speakers on stage for a Q&A session.
Hello. Hello.
Sorry.
Feeling थी वो ये कि मैं बोल रहा हूँ, but it took a long time that our hair had become so slight होता है. I wanted to show some nimble projects, but of course the idea was also that how we humanize the masters. That's what I talked about. We're dealing with very big scale. You have to have a different strategy that how you humanize those masters, right? So, but anyway, it was just worth coming here and sharing all that.
Oh, yeah. I'm all right.
Shahid Abdullah here. Well, I think whatever we saw was very, very knowledgeable. And as far as your projects, Hasan, I think they're fascinating. And at least it made me feel that we were in the Stone Age. But thinking a little more, I was very glad that we were in the Stone Age, because when we see Seher's work, Seher, it was so calming that I honestly wanted to be living in one of those units, and I thought it was absolutely fantastic. So one, I just want to know, the villas that you were talking about, which were, I believe here,
Yeah.
आपकी beach hut तो French beach पे थी, but what about the villas? You didn't tell us where they were and their sizes, or how did the owners even accept what you were doing? Because I think it was magic what you had done. And I think the presentation was also absolutely fantastic.
And thank you so much. That means so much coming from you, Syed Saab. The two villas, I actually had the same thought actually when Hasan was presenting about how backward we are. And when you said it made me think that we're in the Stone Age, I was like, well, I hope mine made you feel it's not so bad. But the two villas, the two beach huts were actually at French Beach, and the last project, which was in Cairo, is in Cairo. So the first one was the Villa 19, was a project that was really a process from the heart, and we were given a lot of freedom to do exactly what we wanted. And it just evolved because of the feeling of the space. So one of the features, or one of the considerations we do have when we get into a project is instantly what it should feel like. And it really means a lot that it exudes that sense of calm, and I'd be very happy to take you there.
Syed, I'll respond to you as well. I think, yes, you're absolutely right. It's not about a Stone Age or a future age, but I think it doesn't matter you do a project which is a one-bedroom, or you do a project which is 1,000 rooms. I think what you need to be mindful is that we as designers, we need to feel the responsibility towards our like a neighboring habitat. We need to be mindful about the choice of the materials we use. We need to be mindful about the carbon neutrality, how we can help save the planet. So I think all these responsible acts we need to think about as designers. Of course, the shape and the sizes of the project will have different approaches that how we can help minimize those impacts. But of course, the challenge is always how you humanize the monsters. So, and we're in the quest of that.
Hasan, this is Amir. I've known you for a very long time, and I'm familiar with your, where we came from and where you went. So since the whole thing is, concentrating on the concept of the journey that you have been through, and you've been through a long journey through various parts of the world, and starting from Pakistan and ending up in Shanghai, and going God knows where next. So I would like you to tell me a little more about that, how hard it was, how easy it was, so that I would be very much interested in knowing, what you went through. Thank you.
Thanks, Amir. Very kind of you to, first of all, thanks for having me over here. It's a fantastic homecoming for me. Yes, I would say it's been a journey of ups and downs. So I started here, and I'm Syed is sitting here. It was amazing to be mentored by Syed at the early stages of my career. I needed a lot of effort to shake that effect off me, and because we as designers, when we are so influenced by something, it takes us a long time to shake that off, and it's very important for a designer for us to reinvent ourselves as we go along the journey. But I'm so grateful for that as start. And then I started career in Sydney. I did some extra education from RMIT for sustainability, got registered there, practiced in Sydney for 14 years, and then I said, what? And I took up a job with a British firm that took me to London, so I practiced there, went to Dubai, the world crashed. I was offered an opportunity to move to Gensler, which I took, and that took me to Shanghai, and you brought me here, so it's been a fascinating journey. And but the one thing that I would say to all the young aspiring architects, that the sky is the limit for you guys, and think like an entrepreneur, and think about ideas, and never be afraid to do what you want to do, and never think about making money. And I never thought of making money, and the only thing I cared about was that how I can enhance the craft that I'm about to learn, and that's the only focus I had. If you're good at what you do, trust me, you will always make a lot of money. Just focus on your craft and dream big. So that's what I did.
Hello here. This is Umar Sajad. I'm an architect working in Islamabad. So really interesting session by all the three of you. So my question is from Hasan. How do you assess the success of your designs, and like, is there any criteria you see what will be the future of your design and how to cope up with the upcoming or unexpected situations or conditions? And what's your suggestion for us?
I think the success of the design has many criteria. Like, of course, the people that we design it for, the user experience. So there was great work shown by Ali and Sahar. And so I'm pretty sure the spaces they designed for those people, if they're happy into those spaces, that's a successful space. But at the end of the day, we should be designing spaces keeping in mind the user experience. I know when we share some of our very big projects, sometimes it's intimidating and it makes you feel that it's huge. But at the end of the day, when you go into those spaces, there are nimble moves that contain experiences of smaller spaces. So I think it should all be catered toward user experience. Less ego should be shown in terms of the form, and it should all be centered around the user experience. And I think any project with a great user experience will be very successful, and that would be my one strong criteria. And plus, net carbon zero sustainability practices incorporated into the design would be my other criteria. So those two critical ones.
Hello. Ali, aapse mere sawal hain kafi sare. Because when you came back, started with Habib, and I still remember Habib always advised what he advised you, कि घर कभी नहीं छोड़ना. But if you remember, उस ज़माने में most of these architects were only doing houses. इक्के दुक्के कोई building projects थे. Otherwise, mostly they were doing houses. So can you share your journey after, from Habib to Ali Arshad and to a few other names attached, and then how from houses to where you are today, and how was the journey?
I think really good question, Shah bhai. And जो शाहिद साहब भी बात कर रहे थे about the Stone Age and all. I think दोनों बहुत extreme ends हैं, और दोनों की जो वर्किंग एथिक्स है और जो दोनों की इन्वॉल्वमेंट है प्रोजेक्ट में, वो बहुत फ़र्क है. मेरे ख्याल है व्हेन यू आर रियली डूइंग हाउस फॉर अ पर्टिकुलर क्लाइंट, उसमें जो आपका 1-to-1 रिलेशनशिप क्लाइंट के साथ डेवलप होता है, उसकी फैमिली के साथ होता है, उसके साथ जो इंटरेक्शंस होती हैं, वो एक अलग एक्सपीरियंस है. और वो एक अलग, क्योंकि उनका एक बजट्स हैं जो कि इतने स्ट्रीमलाइन नहीं होते जिस तरह में भी किसी हाई राइज वगैरह पे प्रोजेक्ट पे काम कर रहे हैं. तो यू नीड टू वर्क विद देयर चॉइसेस, बेगम साहब की चॉइस, आपकी चॉइस, बच्चों की चॉइस, लड़ाई झगड़े, कॉन्ट्रैक्टर्स के मसले मसाइल. तो वो एक अलग जर्नी है, वो एक अलग मज़ा है उसका. एंड आई स्टिल इन्जॉय दैट. जबकि ऑन द कॉन्ट्ररी, अगर मैं इमार का जो हम प्रोजेक्ट कर रहे हैं उससे कंपेयर करें, सो दैट इज़ मोर ऑफ engineering, if you may call it. That is a lot to do with things working together. That is a lot to do how the structural column sizes are going to impact your parking bays, how your raft foundations are going to take away so much from the available floor heights, or the beams, the depths of the beams, how much of a false ceiling. So it's a lot of more engineering and making sure all of the MEP trades are working into the places. And at the same time, you are getting the right end results met. Especially with respect to the builders, the big names in the building industries, they exactly know what FAR they want, they exactly know what is the sellable area they're looking for. But they do need to maximize the units. Now this is slightly different from making a house, to extent that you're not working with any given charts or given tables and given conformities of air conditioning duct sizes or risers or electrical or mechanical conduits. You have more of a free hand when you're doing houses, and I think as Syed was doing it, the simplicity of it gives you a much more free hand to do things, whereas projects as complicated as we saw would require a lot many people's inputs and has to conform to a lot of building criteria, bylaws, so many other things that you need to work with. It's a completely different ball game. But I enjoy my houses more.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon. This is Abdul Rahman from Dawood University of Engineering and Technology, Department of Architecture and Planning. First of all, I would like to really, it was inspiring, three of your works, especially Ma'am Syed Aziz. Your photographer has some amazing skills. And Sir Hasan, I would like to ask you one thing. The kind of cultural center you showed us in the last project you showed us, the cultural center, we always think and we always go for such projects when we are designing various projects during our studies. But I would like to know how can we evolve and how can we ideate such things, because we are somewhere limited in our site restrictions and our location and everything. But we haven't seen such kind of projects in Pakistan yet. Kind of the cultural center you showed on levels, different levels and different geometries. So I would like to know this. And one thing that you guys can please give us some suggestions as we are students. So how can we proceed further? Thank you.
You want to go first? Is it for anyone, right?
I think the question was addressed to you, but if you want, I can try to answer that. I think it's the budget. Like right now, if we look at normal rate of construction in Pakistan, a normal simple house, 4,000 rupees, 5,000 rupees square foot. थोड़ा अच्छा क्वालिटी का अगर 8,000, 10,000 स्क्वायर फुट, आप अगर एमआर या उस तरह की और ऊपर की प्रोजेक्ट्स में चले जाते हो 20,000 रुपीज़ स्क्वायर फुट, और एमआर की भी अपने इकोनॉमी रेंज एंड लग्जरी रेंज और उसके ऊपर की रेंज है जिसमें बजट्स बढ़ते जाते हैं. I'm sure Hasan will be able to give us some ballpark figure on the budgets, but I'm sure it is above 100,000 rupees a square foot.
Look, I would say, in terms of those projects, is of course you don't have a choice what projects walk through the door for you, right? But I think what you can do is you can take a meaningful approach towards the design. So it means even if the budget is not there, whatever opportunity you get, think about the process-driven architecture or whatever projects you're working on. So I'll give you a very layman approach, that how would I take an approach towards something very creative. So if a new project comes in, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to apply I'm saying in a very layman term, okay? I'm going to apply three criteria, how to be creative. It's something that we apply. So I'm going to say, okay, let me think about the project. I take the business as usual approach. What it does is that it teaches us some basics about the projects. It enhances our knowledge about the subject, but it doesn't take you too far. And then I might think about, and then when I say business as usual means you have to go from A to B, and I drive a car from A to B. And then I think about another process, which is maybe it's a different process. So it means I change my journey. I see it in a different way. So instead of going from A to B by a car, maybe I use a driverless car and I take a turn around in the jungle to have, so I am adding more experience to the journey. So that's the second different approach. Third approach is the radical approach. Maybe, I don't know, you're too young. In the 60s, there used to be a program in Star Trek where they used to have teleportation. You can stand in one place and you can arrive in another place. So you can bring in some radical thinking into your design process as well. Sometimes you can take some aspects from your radical approach and put it into your different approach, and it becomes a very creative process. So you need to have ways that how you can create the process more meaningful. And this is just a very layman, and I'm pretty sure everyone has their own way of thinking about it. Maybe apply something like that. And don't worry about the budget.
I have a question for you.
Go for it.
So if you found yourself back in Karachi now, how do you think your experience in places like China, places like Australia,
US,
and the kind of projects that you've done, how do you think they would inform your approach to design here now?
I think, first of all, accountability is much more higher in those places that I've practiced. So it means the time is of an essence. I know we started 1 hour late here. So by no means I'm saying that, so time is very, very critical. Budget is very, very critical. So you only have moments where you want to make sure that you strike at the right time, because if you miss that right time, you will never be able to design something meaningful. So that's one thing. The other thing is that we take a more scientific based approach towards the project. Like as I said, the running costs are important. But running costs are important, it doesn't mean that we don't think about the creativity. You have to be creative, otherwise you will just not survive. There is no direct commissions in that market. Here, everyone has a contact and you get project. All the project I showed you today, they've all been won in the international design competition. There is no relationship-driven work. All the major works will be coming through the fair international competition. So it means you've got to constantly be on your toes and reinvent yourself to be ahead of the curve if you have to win great work. So it's a constant evolution of the knowledge and the constant reinventing of how you design. So I have to reinvent myself every 10 years, otherwise I will become old and stale. So the one approach I see is that the competition is far more stiffer in terms of the bigger projects, maybe not in terms of the smaller project, but in terms of the bigger projects. So, and accountability is very high. So professionalism, accountability is very, which I do not believe we have here at this point. Of course, we've got some fantastic architects sitting here in this room, but when you talk about the average, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about great architecture coming out from the people who are sitting in this room. There's a lot of room to improve. And the other thing I would highlight is that we don't even make a mark outside of Pakistan. And while there are countries which are poorer than us, they somehow make the mark. You've got countries like Indonesia, you've got countries like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, because we have a lot of pressure, or maybe, I don't know what's the environment I should call it, it's not promoting enough original work that could be seen and appreciated by communities outside of our country. So maybe there's something we need to work on together, or maybe we have not been given opportunities to highlight that beautiful work, because I saw beautiful work from you, and I know a lot of people sitting here, Syed Abdullah, Ijaz Al-Sab, they've done some amazing, so maybe we need to market our product well, but something needs to be done to highlight the great work which is coming out of this country. We don't have much recognition outside of our borders here.
True.
Depressing, but true.
Hello.
So this is architect Hasan from Lahore. I'm practicing there. I would firstly, it was a pleasure listening to all of you. So my first question is with Naqvi Saab, that being an architect here, and you've done some amazing philanthropy work, the social work that you've been doing, that leads me towards the question towards Hasan Saab, that working at Gensler, one of the top-notch companies in the world, how do you feel to bridge the gap as in the field of education of architecture? How can you bridge the gap between the international exposure and the local education that we're providing here and the local practices as well?
So, Ali, aap pehle, acha. Okay, look, the thing is that, like as I said, I'm very proud of what I was when I was mentored here by somebody very able like Syed Saab here. And then I started literally my architecture career in Sydney, so I went through the process of registration and my accreditations and all that. I practiced 15 years in Sydney. It's not that I went to Gensler from somewhere which I did not know what I was talking about. So that's one thing. The other thing is that in life, only those people are valued who bring something to the table. And then it doesn't really matter who you are, from where you are, what color, creed, and what you look like. And so in the business world, nothing matters. The business world is very fair, let me tell you that. So there's an opportunity for us to showcase our worth and talent. But what I would say to everyone here is that we have to train our mind. Our mind is like a dog, you know. So most of us are not very creative, and I'm one of them. But we train and teach ourselves to be creative, to be thinkers, and it's a self-work that every one of us need to do. And once we are able to do, you will realize you're better than most. So now I work with people who are all US graduates, all UK graduates. It doesn't change anything. They still have to learn the craft. And it's about our mind and how creative we are that makes all the difference. So it doesn't matter from where you are. So please dream big and you can be the best. I can guarantee that.
Just to answer your question, और एक थोड़ा सा आपके एक पॉइंट से मुझे थोड़ा सा इख्तिलाफ है. और मेरा ख्याल है हमारे यहाँ के ज़्यादातर आर्किटेक्ट्स और आर्किटेक्चरल फर्म्स, they need to understand that it is a business. Our architectural profession, yes, with all the passion that we might have for it and all the love and care that we want to put into a project, but end of the day, it does need to make money. Somehow, School of Architecture में somehow बहुत सारे practices में I feel that this is not taken up into a very serious manner. And I feel either the School of Architecture should teach our young professionals how to run a practice, or there should be some sort of internship programs, not only design oriented, but also when they are working in some office, they need to have a certain orientation of how to establish their firm, how to have a good understanding of an architectural contract, what are the terms of contract, how much you should be charging, when should you be charging, what are the ethical ways of charging, is it an acceptable norm to take cuts and commissions from all our friends around these halls? I personally think it's not. We try our best that we form a very ethical manner of practicing, where whatever fee we want to charge, we charge from our clients. Whatever discount, Interwood Ali Farooq is a dear friend, whatever discounts or in the form of commissions or anything they want to pass on, we try to pass it on to our clients. So that way you build your own reputation, you build your own respect. And yes, money does come your way, but I think you do need to make that way happen also. You need to have a good understanding of how to financially establish your firm so that not only your two ends are met, but you generate, all businesses are done to make money. Why should architectural practice not make money? So we, year on year, we know how much profit we will make this year. We know how much money we will generate in this month. We have budgets for each and everything that is either stationery, paper, printing, travel, food. We give food in the office, chai, whatever we do, we have done it from over the years. We have budgets for everything. If we increase the number of employees, we know whether we can afford to do it or not. So as long as we have our budgets in line, as long as we have our income stream lines worked out, then either we need to do more projects, work harder, and achieve our targets, or cut down on the expenses and still make our profit margins. So we definitely operate on very clean, called out profit margins, and alhamdulillah, we've been achieving them from the last quite many years.
I would certainly sign up for that.
You're most welcome.
Look, Ali, what I would say further to that, I would say yes, I think we need to think like a dreamer. And yes, we have to be realists too. But what I'm saying is that if you think like an entrepreneur, you will make more money. So what I'm trying to tell you is that when you give more, you get more. And it's the same thing goes in terms of your practices. Same thing, like I'll give you an example. So there's a Starbucks. You see, they have a mind of an entrepreneur. They've taken their brand all across the world. So I think about how you can grow. Don't limit yourself into holding on to something. In my opinion, the more you give away, the more you get in the end. So I think be a dreamer, it's okay, but as a professional, you've got to know your fiscal responsibilities towards your practices and towards your soul. That aspect, Ali, absolutely, you've got to do that. People have lives, you've got to think about it. So have some fun and make some money. I think both is important.
I just want to add something to what Ali said about your design practice. There are several young architects who graduate and maybe work for a year or less than a year, or not even work that much, and they go and open up their own practice, which is fine. But I always ask them that when you start designing, do you have somebody who will crit your design? Because in school, you constantly get a crit. We have a question and we have 30 answers to the same question, and you can see that they all work. Now here you are starting an office, like if you worked in an office with several other architects. So, I mean, I can say to our office, so there's a constant crit that is going on within the office, within the practice, and you work as a team, and that's how you raise your bar up together. You need to up your mark every so many years. It's like an iPhone, that when you get an iPhone, you say, wow, fantastic, and after 5 years, you want to throw it away because it looks so clumsy. So like that, I think, all I'm trying to say is that crit is very important. So anybody wanting to start their office, I would say that even if you don't have anybody in office, go and talk to a senior person outside the office and show your design and get that crit.
Absolutely agree, sir. Can't agree more. हम लोगों के लिए आप थे, हबीब साहब थे, शाह भाई हैं, जाज साहब हैं. हम लोग लकी थे कि हमारे पास आप लोग थे, और मैंने अपने प्रोफेशन में तब पूरे 5 साल हबीब साहब के साथ काम किया और मैं शुरू में भी एक्नॉलेज किया था कि वो हबीब साहब की मेंटोरशिप थी जिसकी वजह से आई थिंक वेयर आई एम टुडे। और अभी भी हम अपनी ऑफिस में कोशिश यही करते हैं कि वंस इन अ मंथ जो बोर्ड मीटिंग्स होती हैं उसमें वी डू हैव अ डिज़ाइन क्रिट सेशन। So even whatever work we are carrying out within our office, that goes through other directors and they give their comments and they give that. Only thing is when it starts to become a slightly bigger practice, वो शायद mentor centers change होते जाते हैं, लेकिन that's very critical, quintessential to the part. But design and architectural successful practice both can coexist.
I mean, I would just add to Ali, to Syed's question. I think, yes, absolutely, the mentoring is very important part of our professional development. I've had some amazing mentors all my life, and I still have mentors. So you have to be somebody's mentor, and you have to have a mentor as well. So I think it's a combination of both two, very, very critical for the development. But as far as the problem of our architecture industry, where the young architects, after working for 1 year, they want to start their own practice, I think it's okay. But at the same time, we as a culture, I mean, I'm talking when I say that culture means the architectural practice, we need to think more like an entrepreneur. So if we share part of us, part of our practices with the able people that we see them as a right-hand man, they will never have, they will probably not leave. They will take the practice 50 years, 100 years, 200 years. But we need to think like an entrepreneur to be able to know that how we give away and what we give away. And that's how some of the firms that I've worked have survived for 200 years. And I go to Gensler. I don't need to leave the firm because they make me a partner. I'm a shareholder. I'm as important as anyone else. So why would I leave? So I think this idea of entrepreneurship is very critical for keeping the best talent. And that's how the practices mature and grow. So something for all of us to think about here.
Okay. Is anyone? Can I say? I just want to. My name is Ijaz Ahad, and first of all, I think the natives are very restless for lunch, probably. But so I'll quickly just say what I have to say. First, I think all the three presentations have all the three presenters here have incredible journeys of their own. Some more than halfway through, some starting their journeys, and some well on their way on the international level. And we're very proud of you, Hasan, for doing that. But yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, but okay, having said that, I will ask each of you, leave with you a question so that you can think about it and just respond back. Ali, you have talked a lot about how you brought a successful practice into being. I have given several talks on how successful architectural practices work. Okay, so the question to you is, the successful practices have two ways of doing things. You can either be a profession-oriented business or a business-oriented profession. Okay? If you're a business-oriented profession, you make a lot of money. If you're a profession-oriented business, you don't make that much money. How would you rate your own company at this point in time? Okay? The second question is to Syed. Syed, you have come a long way, or you're coming a long way. I've been watching you, and inshallah you will move on to bigger things. The question to you is, would you look at Hasan's work and hope to reach that one day or not? If not, why not? If so, why so? Because do you see that as a development? Okay? Hasan, a little one to you. I've worked in a very similar atmosphere at SOM, working on, I've even worked partly on Sears Tower also. So I have an idea how to work with a big company like that. The difference is you don't really have star architects like Zaha Hadid or something that you're working with. This is a group effort. To do things that you are doing is no individual effort. So how do you, as we must say you're a very successful man to be at Gensler. I have great regard for them. And what you're doing is just, it's a cutting edge. So we have all three kinds of architects here that are giving their life stories. So how is your experience in working as a team rather than the old phenomenon of the architect being, the master architect, the god himself? Okay? So all three of you have a question, and I'll close now. Thank you.
Difficult question. I think education is something which we all go through, and what it teaches us is how to lead our lives and how to lead our lives in a successful manner. I feel that if this kind of a stamp is to be put, that if you are a professional architect, designer, architect, then you can't be successful. I think that's a little, doesn't gel well with me. I think both can happen. I think both are very doable. I can give you examples that not only that we were doing our own architectural commissions, but there were times when we started building our own houses and selling them. So we knew what the trade was about, and if we were not making money from our commissions, then we were making money by being a builder ourselves. So financially having a success by using the tools of what you have learned is very possible. How to manage a office come architectural practice, I think that also, we don't do that, but a lot of, I don't know whether in your office you're doing your time ins and time outs and how many man hours and all that, but internationally people are doing man hours. So we are not going into that level of management, but yes, we do keep a track of how much work we are putting in onto a project. And you don't see a third category to it. I think my profession led me into a businessman. See?
Sorry, you're only supposed to say good things about me, okay?
It's actually a very interesting question, and it is something that I also ask myself. Because before moving to Pakistan, I did work for similar sort of firms, not as technology heavy as Gensler, but definitely Bainish and other firms, which had this sort of atmosphere of learning through your colleagues and through your seniors, and a lot of collaboration and a lot of people at different levels that you could learn from. And that process was really exciting. The kind of projects we worked on were also very exciting. Again, they weren't towers, but they were state-of-the-art schools and technology centers and museums and stuff like that. So I mean, I look at certain architects abroad, like Stephen Hall, for instance, whose work still captures a certain ephemeral quality. It is about the quality of spaces, and it is his architecture and the way he speaks about it or processes it is very interesting to me. Whether I'd want to do towers is probably not my inherent go-to, but some of the other projects that were smaller scale, that had forms and spaces and the kind of thinking that goes into creating a sustainable footprint for a future building technology is very, very interesting to me. So I would love to have the opportunity to learn more about that. And which is why the question I asked Hasan was, if you were here, what would you be doing? Answer.
I think it's wonderful. So we can be, in Gensler, we can be as nimble as you are. So you can join our practices which deal with more nimble scale work that you are looking to. So we have the freedom to walk and work in different sectors. And coming back to Ijaz Saab, absolutely it's a pleasure. It's an honor to sit right in front of you here and talk about our work. So thanks for being here. Yes, I have a lot of respect for SOM. They are one of our biggest competitors. Most of the project I showed you, we beat them. Sorry about that. But in some of the project, they beat us. So it's like a very competitive world. Whoever has a better idea on the day wins the day. But we learn a lot from our peers as well as our competitors. So that's one part of the thing. The other thing I would say is when you talked about the, not the culture of one single star, you're absolutely right. We are a constellation of stars. And in a constellation, every star is important. And that is the philosophy of the firm. That's one thing. The other thing is that the success is always collective. It's never individual. And with the complexity of the projects that I showed you, cannot be the work of a single person. It's not true. So if I stand up here and I talk about that it was me who did all that, I'm lying. I'm telling you that. And you have worked on a lot of big projects. You would know better than one. That's another thing. The other thing I would tell everyone is that give more in life and you will get more. And this is, I'm not saying in a philosophical way, I'm saying in a practicing way. So it means teach more people, make more people successful. Because at the end of the day, other people make us successful. We don't make ourselves successful. So maybe tomorrow, Sahar and Ali and go around and say, oh, Hasan is a really cool guy. So they are making me successful, but I can't go around and say how cool I am. Who would believe me? So I think we need to understand deeper meanings that other people make us successful, and it's a collective success, not just in terms of the work, but in terms of the financial collective success as well. And we are a constellation of stars, so, and we are very happy with that.
Thank you, Ali Saab, Seher, and Hasan Saab. I would just like you all to stand for a group photograph. And Amir Saab, Chairman IAPEX, Convener Conference, and Convener IAPEX, please join on stage.